My mom left me a voicemail. "You're out of the family business. Our lawyer will be in touch." I didn't argue. I just texted back a simple, "Got it." Then, without another word, I sold off my 45% stake. 2 days later, I had 85 missed calls and a string of desperate messages from my brother, begging me to reverse the sale. But let's rewind, let me walk you through how we got here. It started with a little red bubble on my phone. One new voicemail. From Mom. And just like that, that old, familiar tension hit me, like a weight settling on my chest. That's how it always felt with her. Even though I'd put 2 states between us and built a life she barely ever asked about. I told myself it was probably just about Thanksgiving plans, or maybe she wanted help going over some contracts again. I hit play. Her voice, usually sweet and cheerful, sounded cold and distant this time. No small talk. No, "Hi honey." Just, "Ethan." Right away, I knew something was off. "Your father, your brother, and I have made a decision," she said. "We're restructuring the company. Effective immediately, you're no longer part of the family business." She added, "We'll be buying out your shares. Expect a call from our attorney." And just like that, it ended. The silence after that message wasn't just quiet, it was the kind of silence that buzzes in your ears. My hand shook so bad I nearly dropped the phone. A cold pit opened up in my stomach and crawled its way into my chest. It felt like someone had wrapped steel wires around my ribs and started tightening them. I stared blankly at the wall in front of me. The soft, earthy color I'd picked out for peace and calm. It felt meaningless now. This was the business I'd poured everything into. My blood, my weekends, my future. I'd held it together more times than I could count. Sure, the money mattered, my 45% share wasn't small. But what that stake symbolized? That was everything. It was my link to the family. My history. The one fraying thread that still made me feel like I belonged, like I mattered to them. My granddad built that company from nothing. Just a handshake and a dream. When he passed, he split it up, 44% to Dad, 11% to Mom, and the other 45%, to me. Logan, my older brother, was still in college at the time. Grandpa told me that my part was meant to be my future, my foundation, if I was willing to earn it. And I was. Right after high school, I dove in headfirst. I learned the books, the warehouse, the vendors, everything. Meanwhile, Logan went off to get a business degree that he barely used in any meaningful way back at the company. Dad didn't want to deal with the day-to-day. So Mom stepped up to become the face of the business, working the clients and managing the image. Eventually, Logan slipped into operations. He had the charm, sure, but when it came to the nitty-gritty, like inventory or payroll, he steered clear. That all fell on me. And Mom would always say with a smile, "Ethan handles the numbers." Then she'd add with a little laugh, "Bless him, he doesn't really get the real business." Logan would play along, saying, "Yeah, Ethan is our numbers guy. Keeps the lights on." And I did. I kept the lights on. Whenever the market dropped and they'd gone overboard on some flashy, useless upgrade, guess who bailed them out? Me. My shares became the unofficial emergency fund. I skipped buying my first car to pay a supplier. I delayed tackling my student loans to cover payroll. I emptied investment accounts I'd built from high school jobs to stop the company from defaulting on loans. My 45% didn't feel like ownership. It felt like an endless blood donation. Every time I tried to move forward in life, that business pulled me back like an anchor. But I put up with it, because I wanted them to see me. Not just as the guy who patched holes in the budget. I wanted to be seen as a real partner. As their son. As their brother. Someone who mattered. I kept hoping that if I kept showing up, kept sacrificing, they'd one day look at me differently. Not as a cash machine, but as family. That was my blind spot. I believed that loyalty and hard work would be enough. That blood meant something. That fairness would eventually win out. Every time I wired money or paid a bill, it was like I was silently asking, do I matter? Do you even see me? Looking back, the red flags were always there. I was constantly left out of key meetings, even the financial ones, which was supposed to be my area. Big decisions would get made behind closed doors, and I'd only find out when I saw the books didn't add up. Mom would brush off my input with that same smile, like she was patting a kid on the head. Logan would always interrupt me at family dinners when business came up, physically turning away from me to huddle with Mom or Dad. It wasn't just the money. It was like they were editing me out of the family photo, little by little. I felt it happening. And still, I clung to the hope that maybe I was wrong. That they'd come around. But then that voicemail. You're out. Just like that, the hope was gone. The pain didn't come with fire or anger, it settled like a heavy stone in my throat. Cold and sharp. It wasn't just a disappointment. It felt like the cruelest betrayal. Like every sacrifice I made had been for nothing. I didn't respond right away. Couldn't. I just sat there, surrounded by the quiet hum of my apartment. The fridge running. The second hand on the wall clock ticking on like nothing had changed. But everything had. It took me a whole day just to start sorting through it all. The shock slowly gave way to a deep, confused ache. Why now? What had I done? And then, 3 weeks later, the answer arrived, cold and corporate, just like everything else. I was mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, just killing time, seeing the usual stream of baby photos, beach sunsets, and friends' food pics, when something stopped me cold. There, in a post from a local business group, was a photo. My mom and my brother Logan were front and center, all smiles, shaking hands with some guy I didn't recognize. The caption read like a press release, a huge new partnership for our family company, one that was supposed to launch the business into a new era of expansion. And I found out about it the same way I'd find out someone got engaged or adopted a dog, through a Facebook post. It felt like I was watching my own obituary slip between beach selfies and baby shower photos. This wasn't just some small deal. This was major. Something that would reshape everything, the financial structure, the ownership, the entire future of the business I had a 45% stake in. And no one had the decency to call me. No email. No heads up. Just Facebook. At first, I felt disbelief. But that quickly turned into something worse, humiliation. Not just for being left out, but for being treated like I didn't even matter. I called Mom. She answered casually, like nothing was wrong. "Oh, that," she said. "Yeah, we meant to tell you." Meant to? This was a huge move, I told her. My share is directly impacted. Why didn't anyone involve me? Or at the very least, inform me? She gave that heavy sigh I knew too well. "Ethan, you're not here day to day. We didn't think you needed to be involved." Then came the line that cut deep. It was complicated business stuff. We handled it. There it was again, that same syrupy, dismissive tone she always used when she wanted to shut me down while still sounding sweet. But this time, it felt like she'd dipped it in acid. Then Logan jumped on the call. His tone was even worse, cocky, smug, completely indifferent. "Come on, man," he said, almost laughing. "You're the money guy. Let us handle the real decisions. You wouldn't really get it anyway." Those words hit like a slap. Just the money guy. That label had always rubbed me the wrong way. But now, it felt like a knife twisting in everything I'd done for them over the years. All the times I'd bailed them out, put my future on hold, kept the company running during bad months, and this is how they saw me. Not as an equal. Not even as family. Just as a walking wallet. That moment snapped something in me. The hope I'd held on to, that blind faith they'd eventually respect me, include me, didn't just fade. It was ripped out. Violently. I saw them clearly for the first time, not as clueless or thoughtless, but calculated. Willing to toss me aside the second it suited them. After I hung up, I didn't blow up. I didn't plead. I went silent. They probably expected a fight. Maybe a desperate phone call. Maybe a long email trying to get my seat back at the table. But that guy, the old me, he was gone. That phone call, stacked on top of the voicemail and the Facebook reveal, didn't just hurt. It changed me. I was done bleeding for people who only saw me as a bank account. They wanted me out. Fine. But they'd get it on my terms, not theirs. I wasn't going to fight some emotional tug-of-war. I was going to fight the only way I knew how, through logic, through numbers, through the part of the business they never really understood. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense business attorney I'd met through a connection years ago. Someone who knew how to navigate messy family business disputes. I laid it all out. My ownership percentage. My long history of covering payroll, supplier bills, and operating costs. The voicemail. The social media discovery. The new partnership. The buyout threat. And, maybe most important of all, the stack of financial records I'd kept over the years, every informal loan, every dollar I'd sent, every favor I'd done without a contract. When I mentioned the documents, his tone shifted. "Ethan," he said, "that changes everything. Solid records are gold." So I got to work. I pulled up old emails, dug through years of bank statements, and sorted physical folders that had been collecting dust in my closet. I built a detailed timeline of every single contribution I'd made to keep that business afloat. Then I started going through the business reports I still had access to, comparing them to public filings, trying to get a clearer picture of the company's health before this new deal. That's when I noticed a few things. Numbers that didn't line up. Odd inconsistencies. Red flags. At first, I thought it was just sloppy bookkeeping. But the more I dug, the more it felt intentional. Like someone was actively hiding something, something I'd unknowingly helped them cover up in the past with my emergency bailouts. The idea started to form in my head, maybe this wasn't just about getting me out. Maybe this was about hiding the financial skeletons before someone else could find them. Once my lawyer went through everything, the path forward was clear. They wanted to buy me out. Fine. But I wasn't letting them name the price, and I sure as hell wasn't letting them write the story. He explained that while they couldn't force me out without going through legal hoops, I was free to sell my share, especially if their operating agreement didn't block outside sales. And guess what? It didn't. My lawyer had a few high-level contacts, investors who specialized in tricky situations like this. Messy family dynamics. Businesses with hidden liabilities. They didn't care about drama. They cared about potential. We pitched it to a private equity group. They were smart. Cautious. But numbers-driven. I didn't trash my family, I let the facts do the talking. I showed them the percentage I owned. The financial lifeline I'd been. The major new partnership I wasn't informed of. And the voicemail where they casually kicked me to the curb. I also showed them what I'd uncovered, numbers that hinted at deeper issues. Things that went beyond bad decisions or market dips. They launched their own investigation. And unlike my family, they didn't overlook the details. Their due diligence was fast, thorough, and surgical. The investor team didn't just review the official books, they dug deeper. They lined them up side by side with my own detailed records, comparing every inflow and outflow, every time I'd quietly filled a financial hole they'd pretended wasn't there. All those meticulous notes I'd kept over the years, specific breakdowns of near-miss crises, spreadsheets that showed where my money had stepped in to save the day, they suddenly became more than just old files. They were evidence. Proof. And they told a story I'd never been allowed to speak out loud. Then the day of the sale came. I found myself in a lawyer's polished, soulless conference room, the kind with leather chairs and framed certificates. I signed the documents that would sever me from the business I'd bled for. There wasn't a dramatic argument, no outburst. Just the scratch of my pen on paper, a small, quiet sound that still somehow managed to end a whole chapter of my life. I sold my 45% share. It didn't feel like a win. Not yet, anyway. What I felt was heavier, a mix of grief for what could have been, dread over what the fallout might be, and a grim sort of peace. I'd finally taken back control, not the way I wanted to, but in the only way they'd left me. They had forced the ending, but I'd chosen the terms. Once the funds were locked into escrow and everything was legally sealed, I opened that old voicemail from Mom one last time. The one where she told me I was out. Then I hit reply and sent back one word. Understood. Just that. Simple. Quiet. But it said everything that needed to be said. Then I waited. The next 2 days dragged like years. I tried to live normally, make coffee, check emails, pretend like I wasn't obsessively watching my phone, but every ping made my stomach twist. And then, right on schedule, the explosion hit. Morning of the second day, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Call after call. Mom. Logan. Even the main business line. 10 calls. 25. 50. 72. My lock screen was just a blur of names and missed calls. Then came the texts, first confused, then frantic, then angry, then desperate. Eventually, I picked up when Logan called. His voice didn't sound like him. Gone was the cocky bravado. He sounded strained, high-pitched, like someone trying not to drown. Ethan, what did you do? He asked, practically pleading. You have to fix this. Please. Just undo it. Undo what exactly, Logan? I asked, my voice steady, eerily calm. The sale. This investor, they've frozen everything. They're demanding access to all the books. They're asking questions. They said they found problems. And there it was. The storm they never saw coming. The investor had done their homework, and what they found confirmed everything I had suspected. This wasn't just poor management. It was messy enough that the new owners slammed the brakes and demanded a full audit. The cracks were too big to ignore now. My exit hadn't been just a goodbye, it had been a spark to a fuse they'd been sitting on for years. Problems, I repeated, letting the word settle. That's within their rights. They own 45% now. Just like I used to. Logan stumbled over his words. But Mom said you were out. That we were going to buy you out. I could practically hear him sweating through the phone. You told me I was out, I said slowly. You said you didn't need me involved. You said I was just the money guy. And you two handled the real decisions. I made sure to use their exact words. Each one like a nail tapping into the coffin of their own creation. So, I said, I took you at your word. I'm out. And the new partner? Looks like they're handling those real decisions now. He went from begging to shouting, desperate to shift the blame, but I didn't give him the satisfaction. I ended the call. The calls didn't stop right away. But I stopped answering. My replies, when needed, were short. Dry. Passed through my lawyer. They were unraveling. And I could feel it. Their strategy shifted fast, from panic to guilt to blame. First, they claimed the investor was overreacting. Then they pointed fingers at me. Finally, they fell back on manipulation, trying to guilt me into helping clean up the mess. But that door was closed. The investor wasn't backing off. With their share and what they'd uncovered, they held serious leverage. Lawsuits were on the horizon. Bankruptcy wasn't just a possibility, it was a looming threat. And as the legal mess played out, the truth behind the financial disaster started to surface. It wasn't just a few bad months or risky decisions. The audit, backed by my own records, exposed years of shady moves, hidden debts, unreported shortfalls, and reckless spending that had been quietly papered over. Turns out, years ago, I had helped plug a massive financial hole without even realizing how deep it really was. Logan and Mom had been scrambling ever since to keep it buried. Their plan? Bring in a fresh partner, fresh cash. But keep the skeletons in the closet. Hide the rot behind a polished smile and a clean spreadsheet. Only, it didn't work. Because the new partner wasn't naive, and they weren't sentimental. They weren't going to ignore the warning signs. And once they started digging, the whole house of cards started to tilt. I started wondering, had they always known that my 45% share wasn't worth what they said it was? That Grandpa's legacy had been built on stronger foundations than what remained. Maybe the whole promise of my stake, of my role in the business, was a lie dressed up as loyalty. A distraction while they kept the real picture to themselves. And then there was this idea, just a quiet one at first. Maybe someone from inside had helped. Maybe a long-time employee, someone who remembered what I'd done, who'd watched Mom and Logan twist things, decided enough was enough. Maybe they tipped off the investor or pointed them to my documentation. Maybe I wasn't alone. Whoever it was, they saw what I saw. And they knew the truth needed to come out. The ripple effect from all this didn't just stay inside the business, it spilled out into the family, into holiday tables and whispered phone calls. Some relatives clung tightly to the version Mom and Logan were selling, that I was the cold, selfish son who turned his back on family for money. They painted me as the villain, the heartless one who walked away. Others, though, especially the ones who'd seen the years I quietly held everything together or had heard bits and pieces about how shaky the business really was, weren't so quick to judge. A few reached out quietly. Some just stayed silent and pulled away, not wanting to choose sides in the mess. That silence hurt, but it also clarified things. It showed me who really had my back. My lawyer, for one, he stayed professional, sure, but there was real compassion in the way he handled things. Then there were my friends, the ones outside the family. They didn't just listen, they got it. They validated what I felt, told me I wasn't crazy or cruel for standing up for myself. They reminded me that family isn't just who you're born to. It's who shows up. Who respects you. Who doesn't make you beg to be seen. Those people, they became my new definition of family. Healing, though. That didn't happen overnight. Once the adrenaline wore off, I was left with this deep, aching sadness. It wasn't just about losing my stake in the business. It was mourning the version of family I'd held onto for so long, the version I'd been chasing, hoping for, sacrificing to earn. Some days I was furious. Other days, I questioned everything. But those doubts never lasted long, because every time they crept in, I remembered. I remembered that voicemail. That photo on Facebook. Logan's smug voice telling me I wouldn't get it. And the years of being used, dismissed, then tossed aside. That kind of betrayal has a way of burning the denial out of you. Eventually, I realized the bravest thing I'd done wasn't fighting back. It was stopping. It was choosing to walk away from a place I kept trying to belong in, but never really did. I drew hard lines after that. No surprise calls. If someone wanted to talk, it had to be scheduled. Everything went through my lawyer. And I refused, completely refused, to discuss the business or rehash the past. It wasn't easy, especially with Mom. She'd try guilt, nostalgia, even fake kindness. But I held the boundary. I had to. For my own sanity. I had to accept the truth, the relationship I wanted with them. It wasn't real. And it never had been. That lesson is carved into me now. I've learned what real boundaries look like. I've learned the difference between love that feels like a duty, and love that actually heals. I've learned that respect has to go both ways. And more than anything, I've learned that walking away doesn't mean you lost, it might just mean you finally understood your worth. Funny thing is, the very thing they used to belittle me, the money guy label, that ended up being my strength. My ability to track every penny, to think strategically, to know the value of things. That gave me the tools to protect myself. It gave me the power to see through the lies and finally say no. Sure, I lost a business. I lost whatever thread of connection was still holding me to Mom and Logan. That relationship may never be repaired. But what I gained? Freedom. Self-respect. Clarity. I know who I am now. And I know who really sees me, not for what I can do or what I can give, but just for me. And you know what? The weight I'd been carrying for decades, trying to earn their approval, trying to fix everything, suddenly, it was gone. There was pain, yes, but also a breathtaking lightness I hadn't felt in years. When I signed those papers, it wasn't just the end of my role in the business. It was me signing my own declaration of independence. This wasn't the ending I imagined for my family's story. But it was the beginning of mine. And yeah, it was messy. It hurt like hell. But standing here now, finally grounded, finally on my own terms, I know this, I made the only choice I could have made. Sometimes, the hardest boundaries you draw are with the people you once loved the most. But they're also the ones that set you free. So now I ask you, what would you have done?